Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a totally mind-bending, ancient metaphysical framework from the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. This whole deep dive was researched by Sachin Karnik, and we'll be exploring Puruṣottama yoga and the vertical reference of true knowing. Basically, we're going to look at how this ancient text completely flips our everyday perception of reality, the self, and knowledge itself right on its head. So get ready to seriously shift your perspective.
So ask yourself this. What if the roots of reality are actually above us and the branches are down below? Okay, let's dive into this. This is the wild paradox of the inverted cosmic tree. It's a visual metaphor that honestly just completely flips our ordinary, everyday understanding of existence. I mean, we're so used to looking down for our foundations, right? But this ancient framework, it's asking us to look up.
Here's our roadmap for decoding Chapter 15 today. First, we'll look at the upside-down cosmic tree. Then, the vertical reference of true knowing. Third, the sword of detachment. Fourth, the three dimensions of reality. Fifth, realizing the Supreme Person. And finally, number 6, the most secret teaching.
All right, part 1, the upside-down cosmic tree. So the Bhagavad Gita introduces us to this concept of the Ashvata, which is this cosmic, sacred fig tree. But here's the catch, it grows completely upside down. Its roots are actually up above, a concept called Urdhva Moolam, anchored right in the divine, transcendent reality. Meanwhile, its branches extend downward into our material world. This represents samsara, the endless cycle of conditioned existence. And what this tells us right off the bat is absolutely crucial. The material world is not self-sustaining. Not at all. It's entirely dependent on a higher, unseen source. The world we actually see and touch, it's really just the downward branching of a reality that's rooted way, way above us.
And the metaphor gets even deeper. The text tells us that the leaves on this cosmic tree are the Chandamsi, the Vedic hymns or sacred knowledge. Think about what a leaf actually does in nature, right? It acts like a little photosynthetic panel. Well, similarly, even the most sacred text and knowledge act as leaves on this inverted tree. They literally mediate and convert that absolute light coming from the transcendent root, pulling it down into intelligible, actionable nourishment for all those manifold branches of our daily lives.
Let's move to part 2 and see how this builds, the vertical reference of true knowing. And this brilliantly illustrates the real core of our explainer today. We've got this stark contrast between horizontal knowing and vertical true knowing. Now, horizontal knowing is, well, it's what most of us do every single day. We accumulate facts, we study the branches, we're constantly comparing one leaf to another leaf. But in the context of the Gita, staying stuck in that horizontal orientation is basically delusion. Vertical true knowing, on the other hand, is the disciplined act of tracing all existence, every single branch, every little leaf, straight back to its transcendent root. True wisdom isn't about knowing every tiny detail about the branches. It's understanding that the branches literally only exist because of the root.
Which brings us to this incredibly powerful realization. To know the root is to understand the essential status of the branches. Being a true knower, or what the text calls a Vedavit, means you just stop interpreting the world as some independent, autonomous collection of random things. Instead, you start interpreting this lower, everyday world strictly through its dependence on that higher divine reality. You read the many from the one. Actually, scratch that. It's more like you stop trying to build the one out of the many. You start from the top down.
That brings us to part 3, the sword of detachment.
So, the text introduces this concept called the Asanga Shastra. This translates to the sword of non-attachment, because to truly know the root, you have to undergo a massive psychological reorganization. Think about it. You can't exactly climb this inverted tree up to its divine roots if you're desperately clinging to the lower branches, right? This sword is used to deliberately hack away our possessive identity, all those worldly entanglements, and that horizontal obsession we have with results and sensory pleasures. Cutting those ties is what finally allows our focus to shift upward.
The seeker's journey here is actually incredibly precise. Step 1, you have to recognize the tree of illusion for exactly what it is, a dependent structure, not the ultimate reality. Step 2, you cut your entanglement with it using that sword of detachment we just talked about. And step 3, you ascend to the supreme abode, which is referred to as Tat Padam. That's the state from which there is no returning back to ignorance. So it's very much an active, performative journey, taking you all the way from the branches straight back to the root.
So what exactly do we find when we make that ascent? Let's look at part 4, 3 dimensions of reality.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it clearly maps out the entirety of existence into 3 distinct dimensions.
First up, we have the kshara. This is the mutable, perishable, dynamic world of phenomena. Basically, it's everything that changes. Then, standing right above that, is the akshara, the immutable, imperishable, witnessing consciousness that simply observes all that change. But, and this is key, the Gita doesn't just stop at that dualism. It introduces a third ultimate tier, the Puruṣottama. This is the supreme reality. It synthesizes, transcends, and yet somehow perfectly sustains both the perishable world and that imperishable witness.
And we need to be super clear about something here. This triadic model means the divine isn't just some distant cosmic architect hanging out light years away. No, the Puruṣottama is intimately present. The text explicitly states that this supreme reality is the very ground of our being. It's actively present within the microscopic, everyday processes of our own bodies and minds. It is literally the source of our memory, our cognitive knowledge, and, get this, even the biological fire of our digestion. The transcendent root is simultaneously the indwelling presence inside all of us.
Which brings us to the real climax of the chapter, Part 5, Realizing the Supreme Person.
This is such a definitive, hard-hitting declaration from the text. Because I am higher than both the perishable and imperishable, I am known as the Supreme Person. Right here, the Puruṣottama is firmly established as the ultimate consciousness behind absolutely everything. The divine is a person, now not in the limited human sense of having a physical body, but as a conscious, intelligent, supreme identity that acts as the rock-solid foundation for all reality.
So, realizing the Puruṣottama isn't just some abstract intellectual exercise, it creates this total integration within the seeker. When you actually know the root, your thought, your feeling, your will, they all become direct instruments of the divine. Your actions just begin to flow spontaneously from wisdom rather than from your ego. Your knowledge naturally starts expressing itself as love and compassion. And ultimately, that painful sense of separation we all feel when we're stuck in horizontal living, it just dissolves completely into bhakti. It becomes this profound oneness in action and total, whole-being devotion.
And finally, we arrive at the culmination of it all. Part 6, the most secret teaching.
The text actually calls this entire framework the Guhyatamam Shastram, which translates to the most secret teaching. But you know, it's vital to understand that it's a secret not because it's deliberately locked away in some vault to keep people out. No, it's a secret because of its profound inner subtlety. It is just completely counterintuitive. It radically overturns all those horizontal, everyday presumptions we have about how reality functions. The truth is literally hiding in plain sight, obscured only by our own stubborn delusion that the branches are all that exist.
So the crucial point is this: truly internalizing this ancient framework fulfills the ultimate purpose of human life. The Gita promises that anyone who grasps this vertical reference becomes buddhiman, which means completely awake in wisdom, and kritakritya, meaning completely fulfilled in existence. You just no longer need to strive horizontally for validation because you are firmly, finally rooted in the transcendent.
Which really leaves us with the ultimate existential question to reflect on as we wrap up. Are you living your life lost among the branches, just relentlessly cataloging all those perishable leaves? Or are you finally ready to use that sort of detachment, look up, and find the root? The choice of where to reference your reality is entirely up to you. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today, and I really hope this sparks a deep curiosity in you to explore this profound wisdom even further.